Okay, now let's get into the tea. They really cared about me as a person, not just like what grade I was making. I just think it's a really harsh way to deal with something. I was confessing something so that I could get help, so that I could have support and community, which always seems to come and bite me in the arse. As a Christian university, they have a responsibility to do better because not every single person that comes to Liberty is going to be perfect. And I was like, frick you guys, I'm not living on campus anymore. That was a traumatizing experience. I was like, I cannot believe that I am going to this school that had the audacity to bring this man in to say these things. Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube. Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Gabrielle and I am so excited that you have found my channel. Please feel free to subscribe below, like this video, and comment your thoughts or experiences. I would love to hear from you. In today's video, I am going to be talking about something quite controversial maybe, or entertaining, but really just know that my heart is not to gossip, to slander anyone, but it is to bring awareness to a situation, to share my positive experiences and why you should do this or not. I am going to be talking about my experience as a Liberty University college graduate, my experience there as a student, what it was like, positives and negatives, and some tea and confession time. Before I get into it, I would love to pray really quick because that's important to me, that I don't have my words misconstrued or someone takes something out of context. So I'm gonna pray. Dear God, thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the people that are here watching this video right now. I believe that you put them here for a specific purpose. I pray that they would be edified through watching this video, that they would learn really cool things about Liberty, but that they would also be cautioned to make wise decisions while they attend the university. And I pray that you would help them find community there. And I just pray that this video would help people. In your name we pray, amen. Okay, so I made a little list on my phone that I'm gonna kind of reference for what we're talking about. Also, I made a smoothie because I knew I would be parched talking about this. Let me make sure I don't have smoothie in my teeth. I want to jump into the positives first and then I will get to the negatives last. So the first positive is the community. When you arrive on campus, if you are living in a dorm on campus, they set you up with community groups, and there's about 4 to 5 girls in each group, and they kind of just divide it up per floor. And then there's a resident shepherd over that community group leader, and then there is a RA over those shepherds. So that is kind of the chain of command at Liberty, and they basically are responsible for, checking in on your everyday life, making sure you're fitting in really well. Whoa, this is a mouthful. There's convocation 3 times a week. It's probably changed since then, but it was mandatory when I went. And basically it would be worship, and then they would have a speaker, whether it was a politician or just a public figure, someone who would come in and share their perspective. And then on Wednesday night, it was like in addition to that, and it would be worship and kind of like a sermon from the campus pastor. So after that, then you would meet with your Bible study on your floor, and you would kind of discuss things you've been going through, questions from the sermon, stuff like that. So I think they do a really good job of making sure everyone has community. Now, whether you really click with that group is one thing, but I actually did make a few friends through that, and I'm still in contact with some of them to this day, and they are very sweet people. So that was number 1, community. Something else that stood out to me when I first visited Liberty, and continued to be true throughout my time there, is that your teachers will actually take a moment, or at least mine did because I was in the School of Music, to pray before each class and pray that God would lead what you're learning and help you absorb it. And that is just something that you're not really going to find at a public university. And I personally was so thankful for that, because it's just an uplifting environment to be in, and to be like, okay, I'm stressed out. I know I have this exam coming up, but you know what? Let me get grounded. Let me stay centered. Let me remember that God is at the center of all of this, and He is the one that's going to help me through this. And that was so reassuring for me. So that was another thing that I really appreciated about Liberty. The next thing is the campus is absolutely beautiful. One of the most beautiful college campuses I've personally ever seen. They are constantly spending money, positive and negative, to improve the student experience, and it's honestly beautiful. Like, they have state-of-the-art facilities, they have a recording studio for students who are in the School of Music, and it's just incredible. And there are about 40 practice rooms, I think, in the School of Music, and they all have really nice pianos in them, and it's honestly such an incredible experience. And especially in the School of Music, there is a concert hall that they had constructed, I think 5 or 6 years ago, and it's beautiful. The acoustics in there are amazing. And so for that reason, I absolutely loved being there. It was so peaceful to go outside. They have these like outdoor steps in the grassy area. And so when it was really nice weather, my friends and I would go out there and sit and do our homework and just like get some sun. And that is one thing I'm literally almost gonna cry thinking about it. I remember feeling so carefree, and I loved that part of Liberty so much. Okay, another thing is the food is literally so good. I personally, if you went to Liberty, you know, I used to go to Garbanzo all the time. And I'm trying to think where else. There was Subco. There was a place where they made subs at the North Campus, and I was literally addicted to getting a sub with like some bacon and honey mustard on it. I would get that right before my graphic design classes. So that was one thing that I really, really appreciated. Another thing that's not on my list is that I really, truly made some of my best friends in life that I'm still friends with to this day, who are rooted in Christ, who have that as like their core foundation, and who are just like so positive, such sweet people. I've been in some of their weddings, and I love them so much. And if it hadn't been for the School of Music and Liberty, I never would have met them. And I also met Austin there, so I never would have met Austin. We actually lived on the same floor, fun fact. And that was not planned, and we ran into each other, and if that hadn't happened, I really don't think we would have met. Okay, now let's get into the tea, okay? Wait, another thing I want to say is that a few of my professors I am still friends with on Facebook to this day. They are so kind, so loving, and would remember my name like in the hallway as I passed them. Even like a year after I was done taking their class, they'd be like, "Hey Gabrielle, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well." Like, they would ask me questions about myself, and that just stood out to me so much, because like, where else are you gonna find that tight-knit community? Like, it just meant so much to me, and I knew that they were genuine in their faith with the Lord, and that they really, really cared about me as a person, not just like what grade I was making, and that made all the difference. So those are all the positives. Blah, blah, blah. We're gonna get into the tea now, okay? Buckle up. Okay, I had to write this down because I didn't want to forget it or misconstrue it. There are 3 things that I want to get into that were negatives, and this is not to say that Liberty is a bad university. I miss going there, I really do, because it was a transformative time in my life where God taught me so much about myself. But at the same time, I think you can talk about positives and still recognize that there are things that need to be different and things that need to change fundamentally at the core of an institution. So, with that being said, sorry guys, I'm so awkward. My first semester at Liberty, God has done a lot of work on me, but I am a rule breaker to my core, and that is just how I've always been my entire life. Like, if you tell me something, I'm like, And so God's been working on me with that. Anyways, so Austin and I had known each other for 2 months, and I invited him into my dorm. At Liberty, you are not allowed to have guys and girls in your dorm. They are totally separate wings of the building. And if you want to do that, they have like open dorms, I think, like every 3 months or something like that, for a couple of hours in the evening, and you can just have people over, but you have to keep your door open, and you can play games or like do whatever. So anyways, my roommate was always there. She never went out of town except for one weekend the entire year. So I was like, Austin, I'm tired of, there's a common area in between the guys and the girls, and we were always out there, and I just felt like people were always watching us and like hovering over our shoulders and all of that. So I was like, I'm tired of that. Why don't you just come over and we'll hang out? So he ran out of his dorm into my dorm, up the stairwell in his pajamas. It was very sketch, and I should not have done this in retrospect. I don't know what I was thinking. I was 19 and I had never really had like an adult relationship, I guess. And so I just wasn't thinking clearly. I was really immature, and I do regret this. But anyway, he came to my dorm and we talked and hung out. We did not do anything inappropriate. We did kiss, but a couple of months went by and then no one ever found out. I never told anyone. And then in December, Austin and I got into a fight. I was really upset. So I kind of formed a friendship with my community group leader and I told her about it. I was crying. I was like, I'm so sorry. I have to tell you this. I feel so guilty, which is, you know, it seems to be me confessing that gets me in trouble. But hey, you know what? It leads to better things. So anyway, I told her about it and she was like, why don't you like come and talk to our shepherds on the floor? They can like give you some advice and really help you. One of the girls is like a psychology major, so I think she could really help you. So here I am thinking, wow, they really care about me. They're really gonna help me. This is so sweet. Like I was very genuine in that. So I went into one of the girls' rooms and I kind of told her what was happening, and they basically said that I needed to stop communicating with Austin because it wasn't healthy for me and all of this. And I was like, okay, well, that's really nice of you to suggest that, but obviously I wasn't thinking that it was like a threat because they had no relation to me. They don't know me. There's no relationship capital, basically. Christmas break happens. Austin and I reconnect. God works it out in a crazy way, gets us back together. We come back over spring semester and they catch us. We're adults. They catch us walking to one of the student halls together where we went, where there's couches to hang out, sit and talk. And they were like, we saw you hanging out with Austin. We thought you were gonna cut ties with him, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, like I never said that I actually was gonna do that. And I thought that you guys were just like here to help me. Long story short, they basically told me because I did not cut ties with Austin, they were going to have to report it to Student Life, I think is the department at Liberty. So then I had to go in for a counseling session. Austin had to go in for a counseling session, and there is a point system at Liberty where basically if you have a certain amount of points, you can get kicked out. And because I was 19 and Austin was 24, the legal age that you have to stop living on campus is 25, I think. So Austin was very close to that. So his consequences were supposed to be a lot more harsh. So we both had to write statements apologizing and explaining the situation. And basically they threatened Austin and said, I think you're gonna have a $500 fine and you're gonna get this many points. If you get any more, you will be kicked out of Liberty. And I just think it's a really harsh way to deal with something. Clearly, number one, I made a mistake. Number two, if I'd never told them, they never would have known. I was confessing something so that I could get help, so that I could have support and community, which always seems to come and bite me in the arse, which is just something crazy to me about the Christian community, but we'll get to that in another video. I remember praying and I said, God, please help Austin not have to pay any fees. I was so young. And please help him to not get those points on his account. And you know what? After a month, he didn't get any of that. But I felt so much shame for my leadership. I didn't even feel comfortable being around them after that. They just looked at me sideways when I was just living my life, trying to be in a relationship. At this point, Austin and I had started dating. And I know it's their job and I know they get paid to, you know, keep everything in check, and that's how they get housing, I think, for free. But I think that there is a better way to go about it, and it's not their fault really, it's the system as a whole. And I really wish that would change, because I've heard of people getting kicked out because they found out they were pregnant when they weren't married. I've heard that people have gotten kicked out because they had alcohol in their room or drugs or whatever. Like, yes, obviously that's not okay. And there is a contract that you sign as a Liberty student called the Liberty Way, where you agree to these certain set of terms. But I think as a Christian university, they have a responsibility to do better, because not every single person that comes to Liberty is going to be perfect. People are going to fail. They're literally 18 to 26 years old. Like, mistakes are going to happen. And so I really feel like there needs to be room for that. And it really irks me in a really bad way, because there needs to be better support set up. So anyways, I was traumatized. So I moved off campus and I was like, frick you guys, I'm not living on campus anymore. That was a traumatizing experience where I shared information with someone and they went behind my back and shared it to someone else. And, you know, I thought it was a safe space, but it wasn't. So that's my first negative experience, and I'm not really sharing that to like tear those people down, but I really am sharing this to highlight a problem that I think Liberty has that I would love to see resolved, because I think that there is room for growth. Okie dokie. So the last two are going to be a little bit controversial depending on your religious beliefs, but I think that they are worth sharing. So the first thing that I want to say for these last 2 points is I was in a class, and I don't remember the name of it, but it was an upper level worship leadership class. And I was in it with some of my best friends. We had so much fun learning and worshiping together and putting teams together. And we really did learn a lot through that class. But there were 2 teachers that led that class. And one of them was in person, and he was a worship pastor, I believe, at a local church. And the other one was remote. And he lived in Tennessee or something and owned a company. So he would always come on via Zoom. He was there sometimes in person. He was a very arrogant person and was not understanding at all to really any of the students. And I don't really know that anyone cared for him. And in fact, I remember all of us leaving negative responses for the end of year review because we did not want him to come back as a teacher. And I prayed to God that he did not. Anyways, they brought in a guest speaker one time, and they were kind of just answering some of our questions about being a worship leader in the real world and what that kind of would look like and just practical stuff. And I was honestly excited for it because I thought it was going to be a helpful, informative talk. And as someone who was studying that for her field, I was excited. So the guy came in, we started asking him questions, we go back and forth with a couple different things, and I will never forget, someone was basically asking him point blank, if you were looking at a man versus a woman, hiring them for a worship leadership role in your church, would you be inclined to call the man a worship pastor and a woman the worship leader? And we kind of beat around the bush with this, and he said something about traditional roles of women. I can't even remember. But I remember us all of us kind of giving each other a side eye, and we were like, okay, is he actually saying this right now? So then he proceeded to say out loud, yes, I would in fact hire a man for worship pastor, and I probably wouldn't do that for a woman. I would put her as a worship leader. And I'm not even joking, the whole classroom erupted in gasps because we were all is this man for real right now? This room is 50% women, if not more. And we are all trying to be worship pastors, and it's just kind of mind-blowing. And he basically said something to the effect of, and he was suggesting that would dictate their pay also. So a woman would be paid less in addition. He said when it came to because a woman's role as a worship pastor would be obviously not only to sing, but to shepherd the people on the worship team, and it would be to, give an exhortation to the congregation, whether it's a Bible verse or an encouragement or whatever it is. And he said that he would not allow a woman to do that. And I remember being so infuriated because the guy who brought this man in as a guest speaker was obviously in agreement with him. And I think they worked at the same church, if I remember correctly. And I honestly was mind blown because I was like, I cannot believe that I am going to this school that had the audacity to bring this man in to say these things, because it was clearly in such opposition to what everyone in the room believed and felt. And I just kind of took a step back in that moment and was a little bit more guarded after that, because I was like, do all the men here feel this way? What is going on? There's more details that I can't remember, but I just remember that was crazy. The next thing is I was towards the end of my senior year, and I had to put together a ministry resume. A ministry resume looks a lot different than just your typical job resume where you list out, your roles and where you've worked and the years, all that. A ministry resume, I believe it had a link to videos of me leading, and it also had my picture, a little headshot, and then it had briefly my testimony and maybe 4 or 5 sentences. And a big part of my testimony is about 7 years ago, I prayed at a youth event, and I felt a spiritual weight lift off of me because I've been feeling very oppressed by a soul tie that I had to a former person that I dated. And when I did that, that weight released off of my shoulders, and I began praying in tongues for the first time in my life. And I didn't go into that much detail in that statement on my resume, but I did briefly mention, the praying in tongues part. And I will never forget the opposition that I was met with by my advisor, because I was meeting with this lady to help me put together all of my resources that I needed to find a job. And I remember being so upset with her. We went back and forth in this meeting, and I was like, I'm not taking that out. That is core to who I am. I'm just not. And she looked at me very harshly and was like, well, if you are wanting to find a job, you are probably going to need to take that out. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to work at a church that doesn't align with my beliefs. And if they have a problem with that, if they disagree with that, then that'll be a great way to weed them out, because I don't want to work there. And I will never forget, it caused so much anxiety, like rising up within me. I had never really felt that way to that extent with someone I didn't know before. And I just picked up my stuff, walked out of her office. I walked straight to the bathroom, and I remember sobbing. And I think I called my mom or Austin. I can't remember. I was so upset. I was like, why would a Christian university ask me to take something out of my resume that is so core to who I am? I understand you want to be politically correct and you want to appeal to the masses, but frankly, I don't want to appeal to a church that doesn't align with my beliefs. If they don't believe in women preaching, if they don't believe in women being in leadership, if they don't believe in spiritual gifts and speaking in tongues and praying in tongues and healing, I don't want to go there, because I'm not trying to hold back my spiritual growth. That may be fine for some people, and that, it's not a salvation issue, so it's not going to cause me to like pick a fight with them or, not be friends with them. But for me, that is my core foundation, and I'm not going to waver from that. And I was so shocked that I had that conversation. But anyways, that was such a mind-blowing experience for me. I later came back to that lady, and she apologized to me. She was really sorry that she handled it in the way that she did, and we smoothed things over. But it was low-key traumatizing for me as like a 21-year-old, being like, what is going on? Anyways, the last thing I want to say is that I know that everyone who went to Liberty has such a drastically different experience, and it's based on our backgrounds, who our community is, where we lived, who our community group leaders were, what program we were in. But I will say I genuinely am so thankful for the School of Music, because they had the tools to educate me in a way that I could never repay my thankfulness for. And the teachers were amazing, and I was so grateful for the community. I think back on my time at Liberty very fondly, and I have a lot of good memories, and I loved it. However, there are negatives, and like I said, certain things need to have attention brought to them so that they can change. I have friends, and I won't go into detail about this, but I have friends who have had horrible, horrific experiences at Liberty, and so I don't want this video to invalidate their experience, because some of the things that happened to them I would never wish on my worst enemy, and I literally want to cut some people because of it. But for privacy reasons, I will not be sharing any details about that. But just know that not everyone is on the up and up. Do with this what you will. I would definitely recommend going to Liberty, but like I said, you have to be wise, you have to make the right choices, and you have to know what you're kind of getting yourself into. And so hopefully this video kind of gave you a window into what you would be getting yourself into and the ways that you could possibly grow, and also just things to be looking out for. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed hearing my experience, and if you went to Liberty also, or if you are currently going there, I would love to hear from you and know your experience as well, positives and negatives, because both deserve the limelight and attention. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.